Good morning. Thank you for attending our panel discussion this morning titled Building Resilience Against Transboundary Sand and Dust Storms, Lessons from Kuwait and Iraq. Sand and dust storms pose a significant environmental and health challenges to the Arab region, impacting air quality and overall socioeconomic stability. As climate change intensifies this phenomena, it is crucial to address their multifaceted effects and explore adaptive strategies. This panel discussion aims to bring together experts to share insights, research, and innovative solutions related to sand and dust storms. We will begin with opening remarks from Mr. Michael Milliar, Deputy Executive Director of UN Habitat.
Thank you very much. Very good morning to you all, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure to join you this morning, and thanks to all the colleagues, panelists, for joining us as well. We, from UN Habitat perspective, are really happy to be the discussion and of this event. I hope you are enjoying many interactions and meetings during the COP. Myself, I only just arrived, so I look forward to a couple of days of really intense meetings, interactions, and certainly happy to talk to many of you also a bit more. It is really good to be here and to address this critical challenge of building resilience against transboundary sand and dust storms in the Arab region. I'm actually coming after a few days in Doha, Qatar, where that topic was also addressed, and where we had some good discussions with various stakeholders, including Qatar Airways, for example, in the context of the effect that it has on airlines, and what improvements, what measures can be taken, but also other stakeholders that we discussed that with, and I believe that. We are really here united today by a shared purpose to share knowledge, experience, and a commitment to action in tackling one of the most pressing environmental challenges facing that knows no borders. And that's exactly, I think, one of the main messages that the storms and other natural disasters, climate change effects, they know no borders, and we cannot stop them the way we would like to. And of course, collective efforts, unified approaches, international cooperation is absolutely crucial. At UN Habitat, we have witnessed firsthand how these storms increasingly imperil millions of lives across the region, and our mission has been to foster sustainable urban development and strengthen the resilience. As you know, probably UN Habitat focuses a lot on urban solutions. We are a policy agency supporting countries and other partners with sustainable and efficient policy making that can support the decisions that need to be taken. Sand and dust storms, which transcend national borders, represent a growing threat to health, livelihoods, and security of millions of people. They are becoming more frequent and more intense, exacerbated by climate change and other challenging developments such as unsustainable land practices. These storms affect not only air quality and public health, but also agriculture, infrastructure, and the broader economy. Countries in the region like Iraq, where we have really been able to advance this work quite well. So countries in the region already grappling with severe water scarcity and other effects which impact them. These storms disrupt daily lives, damage infrastructure, and have long-term health consequences, particularly for vulnerable communities. But the challenge is not confined to one region, one country. And that's why, once again, we do believe in the importance of joint, collective efforts that can help address the big challenge. Um, what happens in one country can impact neighboring regions, neighboring countries, making it essential to approach the issue through regional cooperation and coordinated action. Our project between Iraq and Kuwait, generously supported by the Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development, demonstrates the power of regional cooperation through targeted interventions in reforestation and sustainable land management. We've begun to turn the tide. The project has become a testament to what we can achieve when countries share not just their challenges but also the solutions. While progress has been made, a lot more still needs to be done. We urgently need to mobilize resources, financial, technological, and expert knowledge to scale up the efforts against sand and dust storms. We need a stronger, more integrated regional framework for managing sand and dust storms. This includes establishing common goals, sharing best practices, and coordinating response efforts. The lessons from Iraq and Kuwait should serve as a foundation for broader regional cooperation across the Arab region. Building resilience against transboundary sand and dust storm is not only about protecting our environment, it's also about safeguarding the health, livelihoods, and future of millions of people. And we do believe that we can really make a transformative impact together. We can join forces, share knowledge, mobilize resources to create sustainable solutions for the people most affected by sand and dust storms. And we should not wait for another disaster or for escalation of the situation. We need to act now with urgency and in solidarity to build a more resilient and sustainable future for all. So please take it also as an invitation from me to join the efforts with us, to team up with us in really delivering on the practical solutions. We very much look forward to the discussion, to working with you, because indeed this is a joint effort and it needs to be continued. Thank you.
Now I'll introduce our panelists. To my right is Dr. Mo Segad, founder and CEO of 3N Biotech and W Forest, Innovations in Nature-Based Solutions. I've introduced Mr. Michael Millier, Deputy Executive Director of UN Habitat. We have Ms. Dima Abu Diab, Head of Office for UN Habitat Jordan. Dr. Mitch McTuff, Postdoctoral Fellow in Water Conflict and Resilience at the International Water Management Institute. Mr. Muslim Qazimi, Acting Head of Office for UN Habitat Iraq. I will start with you, Dr. Mo. Building on the need for research and investment, how can innovative solutions attract investment and foster cross-border collaborations? Specifically, what role can the private sector partnerships and international funding play in scaling these solutions to enhance regional resilience against sand and dust storms?
Yeah, thanks. So, thanks very much for having me here, and it's a pleasure also to have this answer right after your lovely, summary and statements. I would like to start again from where you end. Actually, we need to have a collaborative effort. We need to work together in such a situation. The climate crisis is impacting all of us. So this is the main reason I am also here advocating for teamwork, collaborative effort across the globe, not only across the broad borders between two countries. But this initiative, I have to say, it's one of the pioneering efforts to tackle dust storms, sandstorms, and I see that the situation continuously impacting different countries. What I can say here, when it comes to the need for investment and technology, we need to have the right technologies. The right technology is really related to innovative nature-based solutions. The nature-based solution has to be more advanced now. We had a lot of discussion about nature-based solutions, but when it comes to innovative nature-based solution, is a little bit not that much addressed actually. So this is where I see that there is a gap here to advance innovative nature-based solution. When it comes to different advanced technology, specifically biotechnology, other advanced technology can be integrated with satellite industries, and this is where we can advance that. Another important aspect here, I could say, the investment has to be also in line with such collaborative efforts between government, between the private sector. When it comes to the private sector will advance and scale things up, specifically in implementation and adding value to the local community, to the indigenous people, and also how could we, transform the science into action. This can be definitely the main role for the private sector for sure.
Thank you, Dr. Mo. I'll move on to Mr. Muslim Qazimi. The UN Habitat has taken an innovative approach to desert ecosystem restoration. What are some of the innovative approaches being used in the UN Habitat project to reduce the impact of sand and dust storms through nature-based solutions?
Thanks, Azam. Definitely, as our DD mentioned, sand and storm really pose a critical challenge in Iraq. And as it has also urgency, it really needs to be addressed properly. My name is Muslim Kazimi, and I'm head of UN Habitat Iraq. We are implementing a project that is generously funded by Kuwait Fund, and it's called KIFAD, and having a very scientific approach on how to address sands and storms. Although the project is very scientific and data-driven project, we aim also to integrate also different solutions, natural-based solutions, but also not ignoring the local capacity and knowledge that exists already in the project. When sands and storm started on 2022 in Iraq, it was really affecting all the countries around Iraq, including GCC countries. And UN Habitat started to work on this project by analyzing satellite imageries and identifying where the hotspot is. After we identified the hotspot areas, it helped us through the databases, through the different satellite images, and through different analysis to identify the core of the sands and storms, where basically it starts. And that was crucial for us on how to redesign and how to allocate the resources to have a better impact in the project. And of course, one of the solutions we have came up is that we need to come up with the natural-based solutions. As I said, we started by constructing canals to channel the water from Eastern Euphrates to bring to the hotspot areas, basically to irrigate the entire desert in order to ensure that there is also biodiversity and also restoring the land degradation. Because we believe that according to our assessment, the sands and storm starts basically from the land degradation. With irrigating the channels, we also promote biodiversity and restoring also the ecosystem. In addition, we also have started to construct a triangular windbreaks, which really, according to different analysis and tests, it reduced the impact of the creating sandstorms, but also hitting the soil with full capacity. And that has a huge positive impact on not having sand and storms. Another approach that is natural-based solution, I would say, is also we are now working with the government, with the Ministry of Agriculture to plant, we call it salt resistance trees, which is really something that we have seen in Iraq quite often that is planted, and that helps a lot to also reduce the land degradation, promote biodiversity, restore ecosystem, but also it is a natural solution to not have sands and storms, and also create, because all this serves as absorption to stop the sand and storms. Of course, we also, as I said, apart from the natural-based solutions, we also have thought of having also scientific approach together with our partners, with everyone that is interested to work in this area. One of them is that, like, for example, also we are trying to use a zeolite in order to enhance water moisture and also like keeping the soil more irrigated. But apart from that, also we are using polluters in order to strengthen the structure of the soil, which also, once that is structured very well, it doesn't allow also to have sandstorms. We are working also in another approach, which I usually mention, but then scary many people, is the bio and nanotechnology that we are using, but that is all based on the natural based solutions. It's not anything chemical, it's not anything industrial, or let's say modification of any plant trees. Absolutely not. It's all natural solutions. What we are trying to do is that we are trying to promote this pilot project to be scalable also in other countries. We don't want only to remain in Iraq, because it has been proven that it is very, very successful. And this is why we are trying now also to work with other countries to scale up this project. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Muslim. I'll move on to Ms. Dina. How do sand and dust storms impact agricultural productivity? And what territorial planning and regional cooperation initiatives could support farmers in adopting practices to protect their crops from these events?
Thank you very much for your question. It's an honor to be here with you today and to provide some reflection on how it applies. Absolutely, sun and dust storms can have like significant impact on agricultural productivity, and thus it will affect the economic actually sector, specifically in countries where they depend heavily on agricultural sector. So there are many effects of dust and sandstorm, but let me highlight the most important ones that are relevant to the Arab region. So first, over time, frequent sand and dust storms can stir the topsoil, which is vital for growth, leading to long-term soil degradation and erosion. And this can reduce also soil fertility, making it more difficult for crops to thrive, and this will lead to more desertification and droughts, which are many of the risks that that the region actually, and many countries in the region are actually facing. And also, the second effect is dust and sand particles can physically damage crops by adding and covering of the dust, hindering their growth, and reducing yields, and potentially destroy the entire harvest of the season. And third, also, sand and dust storms can affect and lower air, making it difficult for both plants and workers to function properly. The fine particles can also affect the health and make health problems to different farmers, further affecting labor availability and efficiency. And finally, also, these storms can also lead to reduced availability of water. We are in a water actually scarce region. The Arab region is one of the most water scarce regions in the world. So these storms can block sunlight and also decrease evaporation rates, which is leading to less rainfall rate and also exacerbating water scarcity over time. In terms of the second part of your question, what are the regional initiatives that we could implement to counterpart these sun and dust storms and to mitigate the effects of dust storms? There are several territorial planning strategies that could be implemented to support farmers and combat the storms. So, let me first highlight the importance of cross-border cooperation. So, cross-border cooperation has proven to be a successful approach in addressing the issue of dust storms because these events often originate in one country, as the DoD mentioned, but affecting the neighboring countries. So, by working together across borders, by sharing knowledge, by sharing resources and technology, we can help mitigate the impact of dust storms on agriculture as well as the environment. So the first thing and the first step that we need to do, and Muslim has already mentioned that before, we need to start by doing dust storm risk assessments. We need to understand actually where are the hotspots at country and then at regional level, and then mapping the most vulnerable areas to sand and dust storms. The second thing is that with having this clear understandings of the risk areas, land use planning can be adjusted, and this is the work of UN Habitat and urban planners. So we can look at the land use plan, we can adjust actually this plan, we can minimize the exposure to dust storm. For instance, government can designate zones where agricultural activities should be restricted or modified. By looking at these plans, we can identify these hotspots and actually implement some mitigation measures. Other zones can be identified for reforestation and afforestation to reduce the impact of the storm. Also, what we can do as planners to build green belts and to have these green buffer zones around agricultural zones. And this has not only proven to be an effective approach to protect agricultural areas from sand and dust storm, but also to limit urban sprawls, which is eating up actually agricultural lands in most of our cities. For instance, in Jordan, we have a high urbanization level where 90% of people are living in cities and urban sprawls are taking place at the expense of agricultural areas. The last thing that I would like to highlight is the importance of having like cross-border early warning system. So we need to establish like a regional early warning systems that track dust storms and provide farmers with timely information that help them to prepare advance to allow them to take like preventive measures such as adjusting planting schedules and protecting crops in advance. Maybe I also would like to add something important, which is the sustainable water management practices. As Muslim mentioned, we need also to have like some kinds of sustainable and smart urban water management. And one of them is like having like rainwater harvesting and irrigation technology that help ensure that crops they have enough water during and after sandstorms. Regional cooperation and managing also shared water resources can improve resilience to droughts and reduce reliance on water. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dima. Um, like we've seen, I'm moving on to Dr. Mitt. The Arab region is home to some of the world's most vulnerable ecosystems in terms of desertification. How has the International Water Management Institute been leading efforts to address desertification in the region? And what role does collaboration across Arab nations play in this initiative?
Yeah, thank you so much, Eza. So actually, it's good that you brought up the importance of water management in this issue, right? At the International Water Management Institute, that's what we do best, bringing science and in particular water management solutions to difficult places. So IMI is tackling desertification, land degradation, and drought in the region. And it's important to highlight here that sand and dust storms are a natural phenomenon, right? They've been occurring before we existed. One thing to bear in mind there is that it becomes a disaster when we fail to address governance issues, right? And so it's important to see the governance in terms of managing and looking at the impact mitigation, but also controlling at the source, right? Source mitigation. IMI recognizes is that the governance of desertification is as critical as the scientific and technical interventions employed to address it. And I think bringing up and raising the importance of bringing science into these environments is important. This is a long-term issue. It's not only a humanitarian issue, it's also a development issue, right? And some of the agencies, in fact, UN Habitat that sat here, is very well placed to do that. Amy brings science into these settings, especially around looking at sustainable surface water management issues, right? So, and just to exemplify this, the science policy interface, that's essentially the scientific and technical wing of the UNCCD, and its establishment and thereafter its successes, right, exemplify why this is important in the area of desertification, land degradation, and drought. So just to bring to light some of the work that IMI is doing, a prime example of what we are planning on doing, at least now, is the launch of IMI's Drought Action Catalyst. Drought exacerbates this issue, of sand and dust storms, and the Drought Action Catalyst, which will seek to bridge gaps in proven solutions and empower governments and stakeholders to advance future-proofing of drought, is going to be launched over at Pavilion A at the Met 05 at 3:30 today, so I recommend going over there. One thing that's important to see in the land degradation in the region is that it's driven by both climatic as well as human factors. In the OPT, Egypt, Jordan, and Lebanon, IMI is working through its Al Maruna project to address this by introducing resilient nature-based water solutions, right? And these look to rehabilitate degraded lands, and we combine science with participatory governance to deliver co-benefits in agricultural production, ecosystem restoration, and community resilience. Importantly, one area that's been a gap in the science policy interface of the UNCCD has been that there has been a lack of recognition in the water resource availability and desertification, land degradation, and drought, in particular in its biannual water program, work programs, right? So this has been a gap that's been identified. And it's important that to see that this is both an opportunity, right, as well as it's a gap, right? But it's central to water scarcity is central to DLDD, right? So IMI has been taking up the step and taking up the opportunity here through its existing projects like the Rewater Initiative, which looks to tackle water scarcity, which is a key driver of desertification across the region. We recently just extended our MOU with the Saudi Irrigation Organization to work right across from Egypt to the UAE, right, in this area. But in regards to your question there about how important regional cooperation is in this matter, it's critical, right? The Shamal winds, for example, that caused some of the worst sand and dust storms through Iraq in its cities and through into Kuwait are, of course, transboundary, right? And they're persistent. What we're going to keep seeing is the exacerbation of this where we don't get governance right, where we don't bring science to these difficult places. So the regional interests must be put first to tackle a collective problem through collective action, right? We have existing, there is a global commitment under SDG 15.3, right, to address land degradation, the land degradation neutrality. So importantly, let's leverage existing strategies. For example, the Arab strategy for water security in the Arab region for 2030. Let's strengthen the role of the Arab Water League, the Arab Water Council, right? And seek to foster coordination and responses to transboundary issues like sand and dust storms. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to Dr. Mosagad. Looking ahead, what are the most critical areas for research and investment to better understand and mitigate the impacts of sand and dust storms in the Arab region?
Yeah, thanks. And I really like what I already heard here from the panelists. I have to emphasize here that we have a number of innovative nature-based solutions. Nature-based solution has a number of already several options, given that we don't really have a silver bullet that can solve everything. Innovation needs to be implemented, and this is the main things I answer your question here. This is the main things. With innovative nature-based solution, we need to actually emphasize on how we can custom, design the right solution for the right problem, which is, for instance, if we are talking about zeolite, if we are talking about other materials, other natural-based solution, it can solve some of the things, but it cannot solve everything. And this is where we can, integrate actually a number of different technologies, as Mr. Muslim mentioned, nano and biotechnology, one of them. The nano aspect is just to reduce the amount of required, product in a way. It's natural in a way, but it has just to minimize actually the requirement of tons of product, given the larger scale we are talking about. Also to reduce the cost. Given that it is cost effective, it is environmentally friendly natural materials, our natural based solution, we need also to consider how could we custom made. Now, one of the the panelists mentioned the salinity, high salinity, for instance. Only design custom made nature-based solution can solve that, and already done that. So the salinity can be reduced with these custom-made solutions. The water scarcity actually can be, fighted and reduced also by also saving water and mitigating the desertification. And this is how we could, tackle the climate crisis, the dust storm. Another important aspect here when it comes to innovative nature-based solution, actually a design and custom-made, solution to fix the sand dunes is also possible. And this is already, everything I'm mentioning here is not a theory now, it's actually a demo. It's already implemented across regions and already managed across different countries. The water scarcity important, and the water management is also important. What I'm adding here, within using different sources of waters and saving waters, even including high salinity waters, gray waters, and also I have to add here the self-sustain forest can be implemented also, can be established in the middle of a very sandy arid land. And all these aspects can be implemented within the innovative nature-based solution, considering that it is not a solution that ready to go. It is a custom made based on the soil profile, based on the water profile, based on the climate profile, and this is the way we can scale things up. I already done that. I already scale a number of innovative nature-based solution, but given from the first generation to the next generation, I see that now the opportunity actually to scale things up with a very cost-effective, and the cost-effective has to be done given the large scale problem across different countries. And this is my input. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mosakat. We've definitely touched on this now, but just in a UN Habitat's perspective, Mr. Muslim, given the transboundary nature of sand and dust storms, how can regional cooperation be strengthened to improve monitoring, prediction, and mitigation strategies in the future?
Thank you. Again, as our ED mentioned, the sands and storms doesn't know borders, doesn't know countries. When it affects and hits everyone and all countries. And it affects also livelihoods of millions of people. The only way for us to find the solution, to work on the strategy, is to have a very close and joint collaboration on how to mitigate the sands and storms effects. We, as at Habitat, we are promoting, we are working on building kind of monitoring strategy in order for sharing with all the countries and bringing all countries together to be alerted on the early warning systems, or having a monitoring shared platform where each country can share information and data and inform other countries about the effects of the sands and storms, and also measure the impact. For us, this is something that we could start, for example, by satellite images, analyzes the data, research we have done, and sharing also with other countries to have also some kind of lesson learned. Another thing, what we are also working on that is that we need to build capacity in many of the countries. In all the affected countries, what we have seen so far, there is a lack of capacity. Sands and storms used to be there, but basically we never done a proper research, or we never had the right approach on how to do that. So we are building capacity. We are training local authorities. We are working with the governments on how to collaborate and work together. We use G20 land platforms. We use Arab land initiatives. We work in many, let's say, events where we are promoting regional framework on the land on sands and storms. We really want to have a legal framework that countries can rely on, countries can work based on this framework and work together to mitigate and prevent the sand and storms. For us, it's something that we are really looking forward, and we are working on that and working on advocacy level. Another thing is, as I mentioned, we consider this as a pilot project, but we are definitely, and also as our ED mentioned, we are scaling up. We are working with affected countries like Saudi Arabia, Syria, Jordan, where we try to bring all countries and alert them and work together on mitigating sand and storms. Thank you.
Thank you, Muslim. Ms. Dima, what is, from your perspective, how can we engage local communities in the Arab region to implement nature-based solutions for sand and dust storms? What strategies could enhance their participation within the framework of national and regional climate action plans?
Thank you for this important question. Muslim mentioned that, and also other panelists mentioned that the need for having this satellite analysis and these maps and the collaborative maps for us in Jordan, and also at John Habitat global level, we need to validate these information analyses with people, because people know better than us. People are in the face of climate crisis and other crises. UN Habitat's people-centered approach places local communities at the heart of its work, recognizing that sustainable urbanization and development cannot be taken place without the meaningful involvement of people in designing, implementing different projects. So, when it comes to nature-based solutions, yeah, people can play like a successful actually they can play like a successful role in developing nature-based solutions. Specifically, they have the indigenous knowledge. I keep saying that in the context of Jordan, we face many flash flood incidences in the region during the last few years, but I keep saying that the nations and ancient actually civilizations were resilient to these storms and crises better than us. For instance, if you visit Petra, the Nubatian civilization were able to manage water actually smartly and more sustainably than what we're doing right now. So, what I would like to mention is that we need to rely also on traditional knowledge. We appreciate the modern analyses and modern actually practices, but we need to blend it also with the indigenous knowledge. We need to blend them and also innovate and update these practices to cope with the current challenge. Let's give an example for a nature-based solutions that we're developing right now in Jordan with the support of the Netherlands government. It's not related to storm to dust and sandstorms, but it's related to the implementation of nature-based solution to address the issue of flash flood. In order to get like the real involvement of people and local communities and in the way that we design nature-based solutions, and in all this, we avoid doing like a direct awareness raising campaigns. We were thinking at the beginning, oh, let's do like key messages through social media, launch a campaign, launch different billboards across the streets to educate people about these practices and how we need to come up with nature-based solutions at household level, because everything starts at household level and everything starts right now. Um, we decided with a local NGO called RCN, which is the Royal Scientific Royal Society for the Conservation of Nature. It's a well-known actually local NGO in Jordan. We decided to launch like a national green award for people really to come up with innovative solutions that combat and addresses flash flood and come up with nature-based solutions at community level. So I would like to stress the importance of having community-based initiatives where people are engaged and co-design these nature-based solutions, and then we can update, then we can develop these ideas and we will implement them on the ground. We like dedicated like 3 winning prizes for those students, university students, to work with local communities, design like nature-based solutions that could be later on upscaled in different areas at neighborhood level. So working at neighborhood level, I think that of bottom up planning rather than top down planning is quite important to ensure that different groups of people, specifically the most vulnerable groups, who could be actually part of the decision-making process and could actually have the sense of belonging to that place and the ownership of these ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last question goes to Dr. Mitch McCall. How can policy and government-led initiatives support to spread the adoption of sustainable land management practices to mitigate desertification?
Thanks, Azza. So I'd say in the water sector, we have an adage that a water crisis is often a crisis of governance, right? And the same can be said for desertification, land degradation, and drought. A plan is only as good as its execution, right? So when we think about the governance of DLDD, right, an important area is understanding the policy coherence for sustainable development. What I mean by that is the challenge of reconciling immediate economic gains or needs against long-term environmental goals. This is especially acute in drylands, where livelihoods often depend on heavily on agriculture. And often in ways, what we see in agricultural practices and certain path dependencies is land degradation in areas that are often host to some of the most vulnerable communities, right? And as Oxford professor Nick Middleton calls this group of people the forgotten billion of DLDD. They are forgotten. And again, it comes down to governance, planning. And we, in looking at how policies and government programs can essentially encourage the use of sustainable practices, such as saving water, restoring deserts to reduce desertification, we have existing global targets, right? The SDG 15.3, as I alluded to earlier. And it's important that within this global framework, the conversation is narrowed down to the topic of SDS. And policies in this area fall into source mitigation and impact mitigation. Impact mitigation, early warning and risk management, and source mitigation, sustainable land and water management. My discussion here is going to focus on source mitigation policies and their actions, right? Something that Ms. David had highlighted is the importance of engaging with local communities. In the context of Iraq, where there's 20% of the population is reliant on agriculture as a form of livelihood, in a country that's using 100,000 dunams, 97 square miles of agricultural land yearly, it's important to see that productive agricultural land needs to be addressed sustainably, continued sustainably. And to address such a heavy lift, policies that create extension services for farmers, policies that release grants, right? They should see that farmers need to become the empowered as active participants rather than just passive adopters of external regulations, right? And I think this is alluding to what you had highlighted earlier. It's useful to see that there's a strong within the UNCCD science to policy interface within that arm, that technical arm. But what's also important is bridging the policy to practice gap, right? It's in projects that we implement important that we adopt project management approaches such as adaptive co-management, which draws in users of our innovations so that we don't entrench certain power asymmetries through the projects that we try to introduce. And those projects are often navigated by our interests to align to certain policies at the national or regional level, right? And so an example of one of the failures in this was the Green Belt Initiative in Kerbala, right, which saw maladaptation of plants and the poor elongated execution of governance of that initiative, which was to reforest an area and create essentially a green belt. But just to note that in the context of Iraq, there have been extensive strides in its land degradation neutrality target setting program, in reforestation. And so I think it comes down to political will. But another factor is what you'd raised, Ms. Dope, and that's around public awareness campaigns. The public have to be involved. And if we recall last year, the International Day for Combating Sand and Dust Storms was launched on the 12th of July, right? We need to engage the public, we need to engage the users. And so policies shouldn't just sit top level, they should be built in with the users in mind. And I'd like to finish there. Thank you so much, Azza. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just in conclusion, we touched on many topics during this panel. The customization and contextualization of solutions, prioritizing nature-based solutions and science-backed solutions, cross-border and cross-sector partnerships, inclusion of all stakeholders to ensure the sustainability of the projects, the development of regional frameworks to make sure that everyone's aligned in their work, and close monitoring and evaluation of the interventions and ensuring adaptability to make sure that it's more sustainable. I think we've created somewhat of a roadmap for advancing environmental resilience and collaborative action for sustainable land management. So I'd like to thank you, your panelists, for your time, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us. Thank you very much.